All right, so today's lesson we're going to be talking about Enoch. We're going to go to chapters 43 and 44. It's going to, it's really going to be related to our judgment and our glory. So those two things are related. So let's get into this. In Enoch 43, he said he was still having his vision. He said, "Again, I saw flashes of lightning and the stars of heaven, and I saw how he called them all by their names, and they obey him. And I saw the balance of righteousness, how they are weighed according to their light, according to the width of their areas and the day of their appearing, and how their revolutions produce lightning. And I saw revolutions according to the number of the angels, and how they keep faith with one another. And I asked the angel who went with me and showed me what is secret, what are these? And he said to me, their likeness. The Lord's Spirit has shown to you. These are the names of the righteous who dwell on the dry ground and believe in the name of the Lord of spirits forever and ever. And other things I saw concerning lightning and how some of the stars rise and become lightning, but cannot lose their forms. All right, this seems like a little cryptic language, but if you just break it down a little bit, it starts to make sense. So we're talking about the stars of heaven. We're talking about flashes of lightning, and then he says something about the balance of righteousness, how they are weighed. And so now we're talking judgment talk, balance of righteous, we think about the balance and how they are weighed. And then he said, according to their light. So the implication here is then that there's a judgment that happens, and there's a glory or a light that's related to that judgment. And the amount of light or the amount of glory that one has depends upon how that scale, how that balance, uh, the scale balanced out. So that's a lot. All right. And he's talking about us because we get to verse 4. And when Enoch asked, who are these? He said, these are the names of the righteous, the one who dwell on the dry ground. In other words, those who are on the earth, you know, and they have, Yah has a garment waiting for those. It depends upon how the judgment goes. And since he already knows how it's going to go, what I'm going to do, how I'm going to end up, he's already got things prepared for me according to how he knows I'm going to live out this thing. All right, so that's a lot, but that's what scriptures is pointing to. All right, so let's get into some more scriptures that point to that. So we go to 1 Corinthians 15, and we're just going to look at well, that's a lot, 35 through 58, but I'll try to go fast on those. But he's talking about basically the same thing, the judgment, uh, and sowing and reaping and all these things. All right, so let's just look at this real quick. Let's see if it's saying the same thing that Enoch is saying. He said, but some men will say, how are the dead raised up, and with what body do they come? So he's saying, I'm curious about the resurrection, how men are going to be raised up, what type body they're going to have. He said, "Our food that which thou sowest is not quickened except it die, and that which thou sowest not that body that shall be, but bear grain. It may chance of wheat or of some other grain. But God giveth us a body as it has pleased him, to every seed his own body. All flesh is not the same flesh, but there is one kind of flesh of men, another of flesh of beasts, another of fish, and another of birds. There are celestial bodies and bodies terrestrial, but the glory of the celestial is one, and the glory of the terrestrial is another. There's one glory of the sun, another glory of the moon, and another glory of the stars, for one star differeth from another star in glory." All right, so he starts off by comparing what we're doing here on earth in our bodies as a sowing and reaping type of an event. And he's saying that you're going to sow one thing, but you're going to reap something else. And he compares it to a grain of wheat. And, Yeshua was saying, unless a grain of wheat or corn fall to the ground and die, it abideth alone. But if it does fall to the ground and die, it then, produces much fruit. So he's using that idea of a grain falling to the ground, going into the ground, the outer shell dying, and what's on the inside comes out. Okay, so you got to think of what we've been talking about, what Yah puts in us. That He puts in us this seed of the Holy Ruach. And so the only way to make the seed inside of us flourish, we have to be like the seed of or the grain that that allows this outer shell to die to us so that the inner thing can come out and flourish and live. So this is the idea, this concept that's going on here. If we don't allow our outer thing to die to us, this flesh to die to us, then the inner thing stays encased and can't flourish like it's supposed to. I mean, it's like any seed. You can pick any seed, a grain of wheat or whatever, corn. You can take a grain of corn and put it on top of your counter and leave it there. It will do nothing. And until it dies to itself in the ground, it produces nothing. All right. So this is the concept here. So take that in and understand that he's now talking about sowing our flesh. When we talk about sowing our flesh, there's three things that we got to deal with, and it's the thousands of variations of these things: the pride of life, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes. Those are three things he wants us to bury. All the different variations of those things that we have in our lives, he wants us to put those things in subjection so that the inner thing, our spirit, might flourish. This is the concept. So he's saying, I need you to understand that everybody's not going to have the same glory. This is verse 41. There's one glory of the sun, one glory of the moon, and another glory of the stars. For one star different from another in glory. They all have glory, but they have different levels of glory. He's letting us know everybody's not going to have the same amount of glory. You know, what did you sow versus what somebody else sowed? What are you reaping versus what are you giving up? What are you putting in subjection? How are you judging yourself? This whole thing is based upon that. So he's telling us this is how in verse 42, so also is the resurrection of the dead. It is sown in corruption, it is raised in incorruption. So if you sow this thing, this dead thing, then this incorruption, this flawless thing will raise up. The flawed thing, if you bury it, the flawless thing is what you're gonna have. It is sown in dishonor because the flesh is dishonorable, but it is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness because the flesh is weak. It is raised in power. So it is sown a natural body. It is raised a spiritual body. There's a natural body and there's a spiritual body. And so it is written, the first man, Adam, was made a living soul. The last Adam was made a quickening spirit. Howbeit, there was not first which is spiritual, but that which is natural, after that which is spiritual. So he's telling us the order of things. We've got to go through this natural process. Allow Yah to work through us by the Holy Ruach. Put the flesh into subjection, and the more we put into subjection, the more glory, the more reward that we will have. The less we do that, the less reward, the less glory we will have. All right, so he says the first man is of the earth, earthy. The second man is the Lord from heaven. As is the earthy, such are they also that are earthy, and as is the heavenly, such are they also that are heavenly. We have borne the image of the earthly. We shall also bear the image of the heavenly. We're going to transition from bearing the image of the earthly to bearing the image of the heavenly. All right, now, this I say, brethren, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of Elohim. Neither doth corruption inherit incorruption. He said, behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. For the trump shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this corruptible, talking about this old corruptible flesh, all this must, got to change this thing out, must put on incorruption. Why is he saying that? Because flesh and blood can't enter. So you got to make this change, this transition. And this mortal must put on immortality. So when this corruptible shall have put on incorruption, and this mortal shall have put on immortality. In other words, this moral thing, this temporary thing, puts on something that's eternal. Then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where's that sting? O grave, where's that victory? Sting of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the law. All right, so I'm gonna stop right there. This whole concept in 1 Corinthians 15 is about sowing our body, putting up everything about ourselves into subjection, presenting our bodies a living sacrifice, and following that which is inside of us so that that inside of us can flourish and come out. Our reward, when we judge ourselves, we shall not be judged. So our judgment, but he said if we don't judge ourselves, he's going to have to judge us, according to how he's going to do it. All right, so this is the concept. Your, our judgment and our glory are directly related. All right, so then the image, what are we going to look like? What are we going to look like after this judgment? And we go back to Romans 8:28, and he says, we know that all things work together for good to them that love Elohim, to them who are the called according to his purpose, for whom he did foreknow, the ones he knew before. He also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his son. All right, I want you to get that. He knew us before, and he set us with the right family under the right conditions with the right at the right school. It may not feel like the right school, may not feel like the right family, may not feel like the right situation, may not feel like the right suffering, may not feel like it, but he knew these things had to come in order for us to be conformed to the image of his son. So the whole idea is so that when this process is done, we're going to look like Yeshua. That's the whole point. And then he talks about this glory again. He says, moreover, whom he did predestinate, them he also called, and whom he called, them he also justified, and whom he justified, them he also glorified. Now, this is interesting because he's talking in past tense about things that we have not experienced yet. But in his mind, it's done. He is done. He's talking in past tense. What shall we then say to these things, if Elohim be for us, who can be against us? He that spared not his own son, but delivered him up for us all. How shall he not with him also freely give us all things? All right. So this promise is a pretty awesome promise. So I'm not going to read the rest of that, but the image, we're going to look like Yeshua. But how much glory we're going to have, that depends on the judgment. That depends on what we give up. That depends on what we put in subjection. If a man goes to save his own life, he's going to lose it. The more I stay in my flesh, the more glory I'm going to lose, the more reward I'm going to lose. But if a man loses his life for Yah's sake in the kingdom, he said, then he will save himself. He gives more glory. That's what it's pointing to. He gives more glory. All right, so then we talk about the image again in 1 John 3:1-3. Behold, what manner of love the Father has bestowed upon us, that we should be called the sons of Elohim. Therefore the world knoweth us not, because it knew him not. Beloved, now are we the sons of Elohim, and it does not yet appear what we shall be. But we know that when we shall appear, he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. And every man that hath this hope in him purifieth himself, even as he is pure. All right, so this a lot here. He says now, because of this process is taking place of us receiving our salvation and us accepting and putting things into subjection, he said we can now be called the sons of Elohim. And he said, we don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but one thing we are sure of, that when he comes and whatever he looks like, that's what we're going to look like. All right, then he said, if you trust in that, if you believe in that, and you trust in the process, he said that you will purify yourself because you're looking forward to looking and being like him. All right, Enoch 43 again. Let's go back and look at this. He talks about, we're talking about looking like him, but he throws this thing in there about flashes of lightning, stars of heaven, and these flashes of lightning. So, how is this related? He said that's the likeness of what we're going to look like. But then you go back and you study the scriptures, and every time we see the presence of the Most High, we see lightning. So if we're going to be made in His image, and when you see us when we're glorified, that should also we should also see the same lightning. Hope that makes sense. So okay, Exodus 19:16. This is when the Most High came down on Mount Sinai, and he said, "It came to pass on the third day in the morning that there were thunders and lightnings." All right, so you see the lightnings here as he brings heaven down. It's basically said on top of Mount Sinai. In Exodus 20, he said, "And all the people saw the thunderings and the lightnings and the noise of the trumpet." Psalms 97:4, it talks about his lightning. It said, "His lightnings enlightened the world. The earth saw and trembled." Ezekiel 1:13, he said, "As for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire and like the appearance of lamps. It went up and down among the living creatures, and the fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightnings." Ezekiel 1:14, living creatures ran and returned as the appearance of a flash of lightning. So we see the creatures in heaven taking on an image, and they have these same lightning type characteristics. Daniel 10:6, his body also is like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as a lamp of fire, and his arms and his feet like in color to polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. So we see this lightning again. We shall be like him. Matthew 24:27, for as the lightning cometh out of the east and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Well, we don't know what he looks like. We don't know what we're going to look like, but we do know that when he appears, we're going to appear like him. So he's coming back in Matthew 24, for as the lightning come out of the east. So if we're going to look like him and all this lightning is with him, then this is what Enoch is referring to. Matthew 28:3. I think this was one of the angels that were at the tomb after the resurrection. He said his countenance was like lightning and his raiment was white as snow. In Luke 10:18, even Satan, while he was in heaven before his fall, he had lightning appearance around him. And he said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from the heaven. Revelation 4:5. And out of the throne proceeded lightnings and thunderings and voices, and there were seven lamps of fire burning before the throne, which are the seven spirits of Elohim. So we see this characteristic of lightning. So when we go back to Enoch 43, he said, and again I saw flashes of lightning. And then in 44:1, he said, and other things I saw concerning the lightning, how some of the stars rise and become lightning, but cannot lose their form. All right. So we're talking about this glory, we're talking about these garments. And we go to the apocalypse of Abraham. In this particular section of the apocalypse of Abraham, there's Azazel is contending with the sacrifices that Abraham has been told to sacrifice for that covenant. And at the end of that text, one of the angels is really is 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 really rebuking Azazel. And he says down at the end here, he said, for it has not been given to you to play the tempter in regard to all the righteous. Depart from this man. You cannot lead him astray. He is an enemy to you and to those who follow you and love what you desire. So the angel is talking to Azazel, and he's saying, you're not assigned to every depart from this man. He was talking about depart from Abraham. You cannot lead him astray. He is an enemy to you and to those who follow you. So not only is he an enemy to you, Azazel, Abraham is an enemy to all of those that follow you and love what you desire. Then he makes this statement, and he says, "For behold, the vesture which in heaven was formerly yours." He's talking to us. He said that glory and all that you had, that vesture in heaven that was formerly yours, has been set aside for him, and the mortality which was his has been transferred to you. I just wanted to see, when we keep talking about this transference and this replacement of those that are there that have rebelled in men, but they're still in power. There's going to be a transition. All right, so he's telling him specifically, he's telling Isaac specifically, Abraham is going to walk in the glory that you walked in, the vesture. And matter of fact, not only that, but you're going to flip around and you're going to walk in the mortality that Abraham is walking in now. It's going to flip it. All right. So where do we see this? We go to Isaiah 24 and 20. We talked about this scripture before. He's talking about when the earth started reeling to and fro. He said, "It shall be removed like a cottage, and the transgression thereof shall be heavy upon it, and it shall fall and not rise again. And it shall come to pass in that day." Listen to this. He said that Yahuwah shall punish the host of the high ones that are on high, talking about the angels on high, and the kings of the earth up on the earth. All right. Then we get to Psalms 82, 1 and 8. People debate this and act like that's not what it's saying, but this is saying that too. And it says, Elohim stands in the congregation of the mighty. He judges among the gods. How long will he judge? How long will ye judge unjustly? He's talking to those angels who are not doing things correct way. And he said, and accept the persons of the wicked, defend the poor and fathers, do justice to the afflicted and needy, deliver the poor and needy, rid them out of the hand of the wicked. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. I have said, you are gods. All of you are children of the Most High, but ye shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. This is the same concept that the angel was telling Azazel. The glory that you had, Abraham's going to get it, and the mortality that Abraham has, you're going to get it. This same thing here. He's saying, I called you gods, Elohim. And I called you children, but you're gonna die like men. You're gonna go down. All right, so this is the concept again. Mortality transferred to the fallen. We see it again in Isaiah 14. We're talking about Lucifer himself. Isaiah 14, he said, "Hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee. Even all the chief ones of the earth. It has raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. All they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us?" All right, so here Lucifer hell is being stirred up because Lucifer is going down, going to be cast down to hell. And they said, "Well, hold up, all this power you had, are you going to become like us?" And he said, "Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vows. The worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. How art thou fallen from heaven?" This is an exchange. "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weakest the nations? For thou said in thine heart, I will ascend to heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of Elohim, I will sit also upon the mountain of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the cloud. I will be like the Most High." That's what he said in his head. "Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms?" There's an exchange. The glory that he had is going to be given to someone else. All right, Revelations 12 is the last slide. We see it. We see this great replacement going on. And we you go back to what we were talking about, 1 Corinthians 15th chapter, how the glory, we shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in twinkling of an eye. That transition that's going to happen. But then at the same time that's happening, we see this happening. He said, And Revelation 12, he said, prevail not, neither was their place found anymore in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So we go back to Psalms where it's talking about, they were called sons of Elohim, but they're gonna die like men. Here's what's happening here. They're being cast down to the earth. They're gonna end up dying like men. And he said, I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now has come salvation and strength and kingdom of our Elohim and the power of his Christ, for the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our Elohim day and night. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. They loved not their lives unto the death. They loved not their lives unto the death. They put all of this into subjection. All right. So it's a lot there. He's talking about Enoch 43. It seems like confusing language at first till you break it down. And he lets us know in verse 43 that this likeness that you're seeing, these are the ones that's dwelling on the dry ground right now, who are believing in the name of Yeshua. All right, forever and ever. And you're seeing their likeness in the heavens, their reward in the heaven, their glory in the heavens. So it's all related. And he said, those who are trusting in this will purify themselves, because we want to get the greatest reward that Yah has to offer for us. All right. Any questions or comments? All right, Chanel.
Hello, Shalom. How are you?
Shalom. Better than I deserve.
That's good. I have a question. I'm trying to see how I can say the question because I always know what I'm thinking, but I don't know how to come out and say it. So when it comes to Lucifer and the lightning, right? That represents, well, I guess I wanted to know the symbolic part of that as well, because the lightning, we're seeing the lightning a lot, right? With these scriptures. And with him, the lightning was him being cast out in one light, correct? Like to
Yeah,
see it in one way.
yeah,
Okay,
one
is
way.
that something else as well? Because it seems like the lightning also represents his power, the Most High.
Yeah, it does. And it also represents the glory that Lucifer had, and to somewhat still does, because
Hmm.
he appears, as an angel of light. He can appear as an angel of light. Now, he doesn't have the same amount that he had before, but he still has some.
Okay,
At
I
least
think
give
that's
at
it.
least gives the appearance of it anyway.
Of it, yeah. Because
Yeah.
then when he was cast down, that represents his power being, well, that part of him being taken away and being cast down. Because it said man, right? So he's now going to be that verse that says that we are going to see him and say that this is the man that was creating all this chaos and so obviously he's going to look something. I mean, I don't want to say man because we're men, but that look, I'm trying to imagine
Yeah. So it's
a
just
puny
it's
man. What? I don't know.
yeah, I'm sure it's gonna look,
Oh, it's gonna
because
look so
everybody's
funny.
gonna be like, is this the one that we
Right.
thought to have it? Yeah. So it's gonna be like
Okay.
they're gonna be like, wow, I can't believe that we followed this right here. So
Hmm.
whatever that looks like.
I know. I can't imagine what that looks.
But apparently it's not too impressive.
Right. Thank you.
All right. Lewis?
Yes, sir. One of the things that I think is kind of interesting is, when you were talking about the different glory and appearance that they would have with the celestial bodies, some being greater than the other. You know, what's interesting is Paul talks about these things, and we kind of see a reference, in a sense, to certain items that could refer to maybe what we could look forward to in places like Job. And I say that because of this. Job says in 38, verse 7, when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. So, one of the things that he told us in Revelations he said that in chapter 2, verse 25 through 29, But that which ye already have, hold fast till I come. And he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him I will give power over the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron, as the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I have received of the Father. And I will give him the morning star. So we know that the morning stars were a class of angels or some sort of authority that was maybe above the general status quo of the angels, because he himself is also a morning star, because in Revelations 22 verse 16 he points out that he is the true morning star. I Jesus have sent my angel to testify unto these things in the churches. I am the root and offspring of David, the bright and morning star. So it's just amazing to me how Paul says these things, and even in Colossians, chapter 1, verse 16, he says that for him all things were created that are in heaven, that are in the earth, visible, invisible, whether they be thrones, dominions, principalities, or powers. And these are all different, I suppose, angelic classifications that differ in power, strength, glory, and even maybe honor. So looking at the cultural context of the time that Paul lived in, and seeing uh, the different honorings and the different traditions that the ruling society of the Romans had, they're receiving a garment in heaven, and we know this from Revelations chapter 6, when he states that everybody received a garment of salvation, I believe in verse 10. And in Roman society, the toga was literally the mark of citizenship. You know, it's kind of interesting because to be a Roman, you were able to wear a toga, but the servants and the slaves and others, they actually couldn't wear that specific garment. But the toga had differing significations of power. If you had a broad stripe, you could be a senator. If you were the equestrian class, you would have maybe a thinner purple stripe, but only the emperor himself could wear like a solid purple toga. And it had to be, of the finest quality of Tyrian purple. So things like that. And also in scriptures, we know that depending on our circumstances, we may receive one of the crowns of the rewards, like the five crowns: the crown of life, crown of glory, crown of rejoicing, crown of righteousness, and crown of incorruptible. The incorruptible crown, I think, is mentioned in Corinthians, uh, Corinthians 9, I believe. Um, and also with the five crowns, the Romans had a crowning system, which is kind of ironic. They had a system where, depending on the valor of certain citizens and civic duty, you could get the Corona Civica, you could get the Corona Moralis, the Corona Valaris, and Corona Navalis, which were a naval crown, and one was for you know being the first to go into the enemy camp. It just had a lot of different classifications depending on how well you demonstrated your valor and your zeal in service.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I especially like the when you went back to Job and related all those things together. But that's good study. That's real good study. And so yeah, we tie all these things together and it just makes sense. It just started making sense. We started talking about this replacement idea. We started talking about the rewards, the crowns, the language that Paul used sometimes when he was talking to the Romans. He was using their language sometimes and their circumstances and to relate to the things of the kingdom. At the same time, he was also talking to us as well, um, in coded language. So yeah, that's good stuff. So yeah, y'all check that out. Take notes on what Lewis is talking about and dig into that. All right. Anybody else? All right. So let's remember to keep everybody lifted up in prayer. Judy and Corey and Terry and Bev. So we continue to keep them lifted up Julie, James and Julie, and others, also that may need prayer. So let's continue to keep them lifted up. Let's pray. Father, we just want to thank you for all that you continue to do and all that you continue to work through us. We want to thank you for allowing us to be the vessel for you to work through. And we ask you to continue to hold us up so we might continue to do the things that you want us to do. We ask you to forgive us for our many sins, cleanse us from all unrighteousness. In your son Yeshua's name, we pray. Amen. All right, Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat.
Now, I believe that the feast day cards are a powerful tool for three major reasons. Number one, the Messiah fulfilled and will continue to fulfill his redemptive work surrounding these particular days. The feast days are actually the only biblical holidays or holy days that he affirms in Scripture, not Easter, Christmas, Valentine's. Those days are actually dedicated to other gods. And number two, prophecy. These cards present teaching moments. And one of the main emphasis on the card is prophecy. So the third reason that these cards are so powerful is that when possible, we have actual historical representations of true Israel. We also include on the cards where the images are now located. So this is an opportunity to discuss the meaning of the feast days from a messianic perspective. Also, it's a teaching moment on specific prophecies, and it also opens up discussions about the images of true Israel.
In a shocking 1700s historical document of Black Americans, a German professor used the term Negro as a reference to black Jews both in Africa and in Portugal. The author also makes a clear distinction between the black Jews and black Moors. The Moors were largely a distinctly different mixture of black people, most of whom had converted to the Muslim faith. The author candidly points out that the black Jews were specifically targeted for the slave trade, and that the black Moors were intentionally avoided, and that the Negroes, also known as black Jews, were then sent to the Americas during the slave trade. Get your ebook and audiobook bundle today. Choose from the following three options. Option 1. Get free copies of the original 1700s documents only. Option 2. Get an easy-to-read edited ebook, plus free copies of the original 1700s document for a low price of $10. Option 3. Get an audiobook for easy listening, plus the easy-to-read edited ebook, and also free copies of the original 1700s document for a low bundle price of $15. Learn the real history they don't want you to know.